I guess I can start. Thank you all for signing on. We've been debating as to what the best time is to try to get people and when they're available. So we tried one kind of in the evening or late afternoon, I guess I'll say. Now we're trying one middle of the day. You let us know what works best, and as we get kind of a core group of people that attends, we'll accommodate that schedule certainly. Well, look, we really have three things that we want to accomplish today. One is we've got Stuart Lewis from the Outdoor Industry Alliance here. So he's going to talk a little bit about the importance of outdoor recreation and outdoor recreation businesses. The Outdoor Industry Alliance, he'll probably tell you more about it, but it's a nationwide group that includes a lot of outdoor recreation businesses. They're headquartered out of Colorado. They put on a couple expos during the year. And they also have been helping groups do things like state business coalitions similar to this one. And I think Stuart had told me there's, I don't know, 18 or something. And I'm sure he's going to give you the background to this, but there's several of those. So I wanted him to come in and talk a little bit about how those are working, why it's important, that kind of thing. So that's kind of the first thing on the docket today. Then I'll take a little bit of time and I will introduce you to advocacy. If you remember, one of the goals for this group was to kind of raise the voice of outdoor recreation businesses so that you could be good advocates for some of our issues. So I'll do that using a couple examples and the information we've got posted on the website with that. And then hopefully Sarah Whitson will join us in a little bit. And she's going to talk about some of the member profiles that we're doing to kind of help get your names, your businesses out there, get recognized, and so on. So that's kind of what we've got on the agenda for the next hour. And let's see if do we have Nikki back yet? I think we might.
Yes.
Okay, Nikki,
yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I'm not sure how much of that you heard, but I just kind of outlined that we're going to hear from Stuart, then I'm going to talk about advocacy, then we're going to talk a little bit about the member profiles that you and Sarah have been working on.
Fantastic.
So is there anything else you want to say before we turn it over to Stuart?
No, go ahead. Sorry, I lost my connection there.
Let me say one other thing about Stuart. This guy, I met Stuart, like 3 years ago or something. We were both Weiss Fellows in a program, and he's an awesome fly fisherman, and I wish you could see the guy fly cast. It's like a thing of beauty. You feel like there should be background music to it, and he's incredible. So I just try to copy what he does. I catch half as many fish, but in addition to all the good work he does with Outdoor Industry Alliance, I thought you should know about his fly fishing prowess. He ties all his own flies and does everything. He's an amazing guy. But anyway, that's not why we got you here, Stuart. We got you here so you'll talk a little bit about how important outdoor recreation is and how important the outdoor recreation industry is. So with that, I'll turn it over to Stuart.
Thanks. Yeah, we can do a separate call to talk about fly fishing if the group wants. So thanks for that intro, Scott. I was able to come out to Boulder, Colorado, for this fellowship that Scott mentioned to work at OIA, and have been able to convert it to a permanent position since then. At OIA, we work with our members, which are outdoor manufacturers, retailers, and outfitters. Just kind of a broad spectrum of the outdoor industry, mostly kind of human-powered. We work with them on on sustainability in their supply chain, product life cycles, some climate work, increasing access and participation in the outdoors, international trade, and recreation policy. So that recreation policy kind of includes like the Land Water Conservation Fund, Restore Our Parks Act, SOAR Act, kind of that kind of core conservation public lands work. I've been pitching in on our federal work lately, but I primarily work on state and local policy. And this work has been focused on creating offices of outdoor recreation in different states, working on increasing funding for recreation infrastructure through ballot measures and dedicated and sustainable funding mechanisms via state legislation. And one of the most effective tools that I've found in working across different states on advocacy are business groups that are already organized in the state. We're OIA is only local to Colorado. So these groups widen the advocacy footprint, hyper local connections to place. You all know what's going on, on the ground there. And when I go to different state houses, I was in Sacramento a couple of times last year, and the legislators don't really care that I'm there from Colorado because I don't employ their constituents and I don't vote for them. So our kind of role, or I guess the kind of role that I see OIA having with these groups is to kind of facilitate meetings, provide physical meeting space at outdoor retailer trade shows when they do happen again. Kind of the general purpose of the groups is for networking and connecting local brands, retailers, industry professionals. So it's not only, retailers, as I'm not sure this group's makeup, but I'm sure it's, not just shops and not just nonprofits. It's kind of a mix. And we're seeing a lot of even law firms that are interested in, kind of the increasing access and increasing participation. We're seeing a lot of those kind of groups participate as well. They're promoting economic development, a united voice for power, or I guess for advocacy power. And, just kind of all those general things that kind of, I guess, are encapsulated by the Confluence Accords. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with that, but kind of the tenets around what a lot of offices of outdoor recreation worked for. And a lot of these groups do form in support of creating an office of outdoor recreation. I know Maine and California formed specifically for that advocacy push. Anyway, I guess kind of more background on it. These aren't new ideas in OIA, and I'm not taking credit for starting it, starting this idea. The first one that we've known about was created in 2012. Since then, they're kind of all over Washington, Oregon, Montana, Idaho, Colorado, Alaska. And then we're seeing a lot form on the mid-Atlantic and the Northeast now as well. We've worked most closely with a group in California called California Outdoor Recreation Partnership. And they were created in 2018 around the efforts to create an Office of Outdoor Recreation. We were able to kind of help them plan and pull off state lobby days in Sacramento, and now they are working on other legislation and kind of they're their own entity, and it's pretty awesome. And we did have a kind of a membership agreement, like reciprocity with them. And our membership team has gotten a little light in the past couple of years. We had an our director of membership left for Vail Resorts, but beside the point. I guess kind of going forward with these groups, like what's next, I think coordinating education on recreation policy, climate policy, public access, providing like boot camps. I think I'm going to work on developing a suite of model legislation related to parks, stewardship, conservation, public health and wellness, economic development and access. So kind of like offensive work, and then work with these groups on sharing tracked legislation around particular pieces that they're finding. So kind of more of the defensive group or defensive work. Anyway, and then there's also as Scott mentioned, there's a group of groups that meet, and Scott was able to join for the most recent one. And they're sharing best practices. They're, kind of surveying their membership now with this pandemic to kind of get feels for what's going on kind of at a lower level, not lower level, more local level. I think that's really going to help OIA's research generally in the industry. But yeah, I'm super stoked for like what what can come on the state legislative front from these groups. I think funding coming out of the pandemic is going to be big. We've seen, you know, so much use of close to home recreation, and then parks are also usually the first parts of budgets cut by state and local governments that are operating under a lower sales tax base. I think equity and access is going to be huge too, improving and creating parks and infrastructure in underparked areas. And then just more of that conservation, true conservation work, you know, civilian conservation corps type stuff will be a huge focus going forward at the state and local level. But anyway, sorry, that was kind of all over the place. And if there are any questions, happy to field them. I think you're on mute, Scott.
I was just wondering, Stuart, if you wanted to share anything on the national level in terms of some of the economic impact of outdoor recreation, or what you're anticipating kind of with the current slowdown with COVID and any of that?
Yeah, so I mean, nationally, and this is all pre, you know, COVID. This is, and our numbers are a couple of years old, so it's kind of tough for us to get, you know, kind of quick impacts because of just the way the federal government collects their information. So it accounted for like 7.6 million jobs and $887 billion towards the economy. And it was growing faster than the outdoor industry was growing faster than the regular economy in general. You know, that's all changed. But I think, you know, with the increased focus on close to home recreation, people getting outside, I think the bounce back for the industry is going to be quick. You know, I'm hearing anecdotal stories. My uncle owns a bike shop in Kentucky, and he's worried about keeping bikes on the shelf and getting more in. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. Yeah.
Okay. Great. Any other questions for Stuart? What are you guys expecting for your expo stuff? Is there any news about when you might actually have another expo? I mean, obviously things are all canceled now.
Everything's kind of up in the air, and we are partners with Emerald and Outdoor Retailer, or I guess Emerald, who puts on Outdoor Retailer as well as a variety of other trade shows. Usually they're in January and June. This year's is not going to be taking place as, or I guess this summer's is not going to be taking place as normal, obviously. We don't have any word on if it's going to be in person later in the year, some kind of digital format later in the year. I think they're still trying to figure that out based on retail buying schedules and just kind of their contracts. And Emerald's a publicly traded company, so they are pretty guarded with what their plans are. So I don't have a lot of insight. I guess OIA doesn't have a lot of insight into what they're thinking, but hoping it's going to be some kind of digital format in the fall and not a digital format in a month.
Yeah.
Just so I don't have to plan anything in a month. But anyway, yeah, I think, you know, we'll see when the next in-person one is, but.
Great. Nikki, you want me?
I do have a question.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Stuart, this is Nikki from Arizona Wildlife Federation. Can you talk a little bit more about what these state offices of outdoor recreation do? What are they kind of in charge of? Is that the state parks is underneath them? What other kind of things do they do?
Sure. So there's about 17 offices of outdoor recreation now. There is a fair amount of overlap with the state outdoor business groups, but not total. They work. It depends on how they're all set up. They're kind of different, but they work generally around 4 themes, and that's conservation and stewardship, economic economic and workforce development, public health and wellness, and oh damn it, one more. Stewardship, conservation, stewardship. Did I say that one? Conservation, public health, economic development, education. So, for example, Colorado's is set up in the economic development cabinet. So theirs is more on business attraction and retention, job growth. So they partner with universities on creating like an outdoor MBA program, doing more kind of getting more manufacturing classes kind of stuff going on. Oregon is set up in state parks, so they're a little bit more connected with kind of right now he's working on reopening strategies across local, state, and federal. So they're kind of this connection point in state government that coordinates up with from like the local level across state government. So they kind of are touch points to tourism and travel and natural resources and parks and economic development, how all of that, and public health, and how all of those work together generally. And then there's some states have task forces, so it's kind of a group that advises a governor, and they develop recommendations related to outdoor policy. And then I know in Washington state, their outdoor rec director is a policy advisor to the governor. So just a member of the governor's cabinet. They're kind of all over. I know some are in travel and tourism. It just depends on what the need of the state is. So quite a different structure. And then because of their structure, their focus area is a little different as well.
Great, thanks, Stuart.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions for Stuart? Nikki, you want me just to roll ahead with the little advocacy intro that we're going to do today?
Yes, go right ahead, and Michael will take care of the website, showing off the website whenever you're ready. You just direct him to what page you want to be on.
So you don't want me to share?
That's fine. He can give you powers to do that.
Okay, I think he already has, but all right. So thanks a lot, Stuart, for that. I guess I'll underscore a couple things that Stuart mentioned. One is the importance of local voices when we're talking about policy, whether it's state level policy or federal level policy. The local voices are really, really important. And the business voice is one that, frankly, there's kind of a pecking order in terms of who the elected officials listen to. And the business voice is pretty high up on that list. So I think this group has the opportunity to influence a lot of things that might be helpful to your businesses and certainly helpful to the outdoors. The other thing is, Stuart mentioned this kind of group of groups, which is a group of now these state business coalitions. And their focus in the one call that I've attended so far was primarily around the payroll protection plan and things like that, and when different states were starting to get back to business in terms of their local parks and things. But if anybody's interested in that, we can certainly forward you some information, or if you're interested in the specifics that they have there, maybe we'll figure out a way to add a tab or something to our website where we can share information from that particular forum. With that, I'll roll ahead into, I just had planned to talk a little bit about advocacy today. Like I said earlier, one of the goals of this group is to raise the voice of outdoor recreation impacted businesses, or outdoor recreation businesses, and those businesses that are affected by outdoor recreation. And kind of the way we plan to do that is, number one, introduce you guys to the issues, and number two, educate you on the issues, and then number three, provide some opportunities for you to engage or advocate for those issues, particularly those that you feel strongly about. So, that ladder of advocacy, if you think about it, can start really simply. It could be clicking, yes, I support this, general letter or this statement or something like that. We'll have some of that on our website. It could be you authoring your own letter or editing a letter that's already there that we're sending to, whoever the targets might be. Elected officials generally are the targets. It could be writing a letter to the editor for a local newspaper or an op-ed, or it could be meeting with an elected official or their staff, or even traveling to DC. And I see a couple people on the line here. We've got Ben Bethel, who's done some of this before with us, gone to DC and talked about uranium mining around the Grand Canyon. I think I see Dave Brown there, and Dave recently jumped on the phone. We had a call with Senator McSally's office, and I think Dave's in the process of writing an op-ed on a particular issue also. So, it doesn't have to be, but sometimes it is intimidating to try to do through GoA. It's easy for you guys to become advocates for the things that impact your businesses. With that, I guess I'll let Dave or Ben, if either of you guys want to share kind of your own experience and hopefully echoing that, yeah, it's really not that scary, or feel free to do so.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, in my past 2 years when I've gone to DC with you, it's been amazing and a little bit inspiring, I guess, to see how easy it is to, well, it seemed easy for me, but how it was nice to have direct face-to-face access and quality time with our representatives. I think that they listened, and I was also very impressed with all of their knowledge on their interrelationships between departments and other individuals. I think they understood our issues, and I think that everything was really nonpartisan and made sense, and it was for the greater benefit of the state. So it's, I think as long as you put something in a rational manner that makes sense, people are going to listen, and it's important to get those messages out to as many people as possible.
Great, thanks, Ben. Dave, you want to share anything about your recent experience with Michael and I?
Yeah, I thought it was really, really cool what you and Michael did, and I guess from my angle, I didn't even know about the person in question. So doing the research on him, and then just having ensuring that my ducks were in a row to speak to Senator McSally's staffer as far as money is concerned, because a lot of times it all boils down to money. And being able to present that, I think, is great, and hopefully he'll listen, or they'll listen. So yeah, no, it's
great.
Awesome.
Thanks. Okay, so I'm going to expand this a little bit. I'll use kind of 3 examples, all issues that I think are fairly universally supported by the people that have signed up for Get Outdoors Arizona, and all that we're gonna have. We've got information already on the website, and you've got an opportunity to participate, and we'll be doing more of that. So the first one, Stuart mentioned the Land and Water Conservation Fund. That's a fund that's been around since 1965. It's arguably probably one of the best things for conservation in the last 50 years. The money from the Land and Water Conservation Fund comes from offshore oil and gas development royalties, and it goes towards conservation of everything from access to our public lands for hiking, hunting, fishing, whatever you do on our public lands, to things like even work on trails or state parks, and even local parks. So ball fields, swimming pools, tennis courts. There's in Arizona, and we've got some lists that we can probably share, but no county, literally there's no county in Arizona that has not received some LWCF funding over the last 50 years since the inception of the program. And so the program's, it's a really good thing, but it's got a bit of a checkered history. It expired in 2018, so then we were advocating for it to be put back in place and permanently reauthorized. We got that in 2019, and then they cut the funding for it. So it's kind of like you opened a checking account, but you didn't put any money in it. So then we're fighting for some funding in 2019, and then fighting for funding again this year. Now we're currently, fighting to try to get it permanently reauthorized. And in fact, it's got a ton of bipartisan support. Originally, Senator McSally was against LWCF. Then we talked to her several times. She was kind of for it, but also for some bad amendments that would have kind of gutted it. Now she's really fully behind it. So that's just an example of how we can be influential on these things. I would say that if we had this business coalition up and running and we were talking to Senator McSally earlier on in the process, she probably would have come around a lot quicker on that particular issue. If I'm going to share, Michael, I'm just going to share my screen. I think I'll be able to do this. Let me know if that's working. You guys see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So this is the GoAZ website. So here's just an example. If we click the latest news here, which I've already got up actually, but here's an article that we've got. 5/12 is a date. Pressure grows for public lands package in the future stimulus. So this is something that basically would be full funding and permanent funding for LWCF. It would include the Parks Maintenance Act. It would include some other things, but all things that would be good for conservation. They've got bipartisan support, and we're hoping that as part of one of the upcoming stimulus packages, they will be including money for the outdoor recreation. So there's an article on it there. You can also see under latest news, I guess I'll come back to Grand Canyon, never mind. So then if we go to the resources tab, same thing, we can go down and I can scroll here. There's economic impact articles. Here's a fact sheet on LWCF, saying more about what I just told you about, specific to Arizona. And then ultimately, we'll have a take action page where you can take action on these particular issues.
Nice.
So we're trying to make it easy for you. If you want to get a lot of research, we're trying to put a lot of information there. We are nonpartisan, of course. You'll see that, we give McSally kudos on some things, and then we'll maybe call her out to some degree on other things like uranium mining, which I'll talk about in a moment here. But so that's kind of the layout of this. Let me go back to latest news and start talking about, are there questions specifically about LWCF? I wasn't planning to get into a lot of details, but I can certainly answer those if you like.
Hey, Scott, I had one question for you. As those revenues are brought in, is there a huge concern over what's happening with future revenue streams when it comes to just the really big drop we've seen in the prices of oil and gas?
There might be. I mean, there hasn't been a lot of talk of that. In this particular case, I think if we had the big drop in oil prices maybe 2 years ago, there would be a lot more pushback. But at this point, I think many of the members in Congress, this one has got such good bipartisan support. It's more a matter of when it's going to pass than it is if it's going to pass. So I don't think they're too concerned about it. I'm sure when they really start negotiating on the budget, they'll talk about that. But right now it's bundled together with funding for the Restore Our Parks Act and some other things. So I suspect what will happen is there will be some horse trading, and it might not be, I don't know, a full 900 million, but at least it won't get zeroed out and have to fight from, a point of zero every single year.
Thank you.
Any other questions on LWCF? By the way, the act that it's rolled into is, I think I mentioned it, and I think Stuart might have mentioned it also. It's Senate Bill 3420, I think, but it's the Get America Outdoors Act, and we will also post some information if we don't already have it on the website on that. The other one, the second item that I'd like to talk about in terms of advocacy is Grand Canyon and uranium mining around the Grand Canyon. Here you can see, again, I'm going to the page that we had on latest news. There's a poll that talks about Arizonans opposing new uranium mining at the Grand Canyon. The history there is, again, we're trying not to be partisan here, and it's not like we're necessarily anti-mining. At least I'll speak now for Arizona Wildlife Federation, and I think the Go Arizona Coalition. We're not necessarily anti-mining. We just don't think that uranium mining specifically around the Grand Canyon is a very good idea. And so many of you have probably been following this for a long time if you're from Arizona, but in 2012, there was essentially a ban put in place on new mines around the Grand Canyon. And since that time, that ban has been challenged and continues to be challenged. And the story changes a little bit each year. I always tell people it's a little bit like being the good guys against the bad guys in like drug smuggling or something. As soon as the good guys get a little bit smarter, the bad guys get a little bit smarter too, and you keep having to change the game. But so it seems like right now, the opposition has really been pretty, I'll say it's a little bit more subtle, but there has been a recommendation made to the Trump administration that they provide $150 million to get uranium only from domestic uranium deposits. And that would put the area around the Grand Canyon under a lot of pressure. And that particular type of legislation or policy would basically benefit, one or two foreign-owned uranium mining companies, and it could potentially put the outdoor recreation industry at risk in northern Arizona. So we don't think that's a very good idea, generally speaking. So there's some information there on latest news. Again, if you go to resources and click that, there's even more information. Grand Canyon Trust, who's, I don't know, is Amber on the line today? I'm not sure if she is. I didn't see her, but Grand Canyon Trust has been helping us with this Get Outdoors Arizona Business Coalition. They've got a report there that's really thorough, that gives a lot of history on it. You can read more from what they've got there. I think we also may have added a fact sheet, or maybe we didn't add it yet, but we will shortly. But there's other information on Grand Canyon and uranium mining around the Grand Canyon. And there's going to be plenty of opportunities for you to weigh in, particularly if this heats up. Now, within the state, here's an example of where we've been a little bit critical of Senator McSally, because she has not stood up for, a permanent protection or even the existing protection, or said that she's opposed to uranium mining around the Grand Canyon. She kind of indicates that, but then she doesn't go as far as actually making the statement. Whereas Senator Sinema, who wanted it to be bipartisan, she has put forward legislation that would permanently protect that area around the Grand Canyon. Let's see, before I go any farther, again, I'm not planning on getting into a lot of details here, but more to show you guys what we've got on the website and how you can get educated. Any other questions on uranium mining around the Grand Canyon?
Scott, this is Ash. Just to give a little bit of background history, Northern Arizona businesses, and especially, the Northern Arizona Lodging and Restaurant Associations, have actually, for the last 20 years, written letters in support of banning mining up at the canyon.
Yeah.
And we also forced the city of Flagstaff to join in that letter writing campaign. Yep. So I know that there is a huge amount of support even from the business community, because everybody realizes what happens to the Grand Canyon, so happens to all the local economies over there. And so anything negative that comes out of this, that happens, whether there is a leak, whether there is contamination, anything bad that happens to the canyon will be bad for all the local economies up there. So that's a good part, that we are also pressuring our public representatives, whether it be at state level or federal level, to say, hey, we don't want this.
Right.
So from a bipartisan standpoint, even businesses are against this.
Yeah, agreed. I think it's broadly supported. The permanent protection is broadly supported by, Arizonans, and it's getting broader support at Congress, but sometimes, these things take a while. And you would think with Senator McSally, you would think that, she says that she loves the Grand Canyon. She says she goes hiking there. You would think she'd stand up and say, hey, me too. I want to permanently protect it, but she hasn't yet.
Well, the mining lobby is spending millions and millions of dollars up in the Beltway. And they're also not just doing it directly to candidates, but they're whining and dining all the guys that do make some of these decisions in the bureaucracy, in the administration. And so it's a huge tug of war battle that's going on. And it's like, you know, the litigation lobby, right? The attorneys lobby right now, you know, even though legislators want to bring in some protections regarding COVID in the workplace and COVID in businesses, you know, the attorneys are not letting that through because they see this as a windfall. So, you know, I think we're going up against dollars.
Yeah, you're probably right. The only thing that speaks louder to a politician than dollars is votes. So,
yeah.
Weren't you saying that the uranium that's found up in the Grand Canyon area is very like poor quality?
So it depends whether you look at the world, the globe, or whether you look at the US. So if you look at the global market for uranium, there are much, much richer deposits than you can find in the US. And that's one of the reasons why there isn't a lot of uranium mining right now in the US. There have been some booms. One was, you know, during the Cold War, one was in the 80s, and now potentially there might be a mini boom if there's kind of these subsidies for domestic production. But just, and I'm going to use the wrong term here, I should probably look it up, but if think in general terms of purity, there are deposits in Canada and Australia and some places like I think Kazakhstan also that have 17%-ish. And again, I wish Amber was on the line, but I'm going to call it purity, as opposed to the US, which generally averages across the US around 1%. So, you know, it's pretty hard to compete on a cost basis when that's who you're competing against, when somebody else has, you know, resources that are that much richer than yours. However, if you then put the fence around the United States and say we have to get it from the United States, the brecciopite mines around or deposits around the Grand Canyon can be as high as 3%. And then you compare that with something that's like in a in situ mine is what they call it up in southern Utah. That's a different structure, and those are only about 1%. So you can see why then potentially there's a lot more pressure now on reviewing the mineral withdrawal or the ban around the Grand Canyon, because relative to other domestic sources, it could be pretty good. So that's why the mining companies are, you know, trying to pressure the review of the ban and say, hey, maybe you should not have that ban. And that's why we're a little bit afraid that that particular area, the specific area that we think is a bad place to do uranium mining, might fall under the most pressure within the US for domestic sources. Any other question or discussion on uranium mining? If not, I'll go to one that's, you know, not as complicated or difficult as either funding or something like uranium mining. And this one's pretty simple. It's called the Modernized Access to Public Lands Act. This one, I don't know that we have anything under latest news or resources, but we do have an example under the Take Action button that's just a letter. This particular act is actually sponsored by McSally. We've been talking a lot about her. So here we're supporting something that she wants to do. We think it's a really good idea. And it's basically just digitizing things like the maps that show where access is to public lands, where easements are. Some of that has already been done, but there's a lot of it that hasn't been done. And so as people that hike, hunt, camp, whatever they do in the outdoors, having, you know, immediate access via your phone or your digital device to the maps that show exactly where you can be, and not, you know, irritating a rancher or somebody else by being in the wrong place when you didn't intend to be in the wrong place. This one should be pretty straightforward and pretty simple. So here's an example of just a sign-on letter, and we will have these for other things, including uranium mining and LWCF, or the Great American Outdoors Act, shortly. But you'd go on our website, you'd go to that take action page, you'd click the button, and then typically you can just add your name. Or in some cases, you couldn't customize the letter if you choose to customize the letter, and it's going to go automatically to either our Arizona senators, or in some cases, we will allow you to target it to your specific congressman from your district, or we'll send it to all the congressmen and congresswomen in Arizona. So that's just kind of an example of another one, and that one is live today. So if you want to go there and click and add the name of your name or your business's name, that would be awesome if you're willing to do that. And we will continue to kind of send out email notification for different issues, let you know when we've got something new posted, particularly an action alert, and then we'll review that kind of stuff, excuse me, in here when we have our meetings once a month. Any questions on the Mapland Act or any of the advocacy or what we're trying to do? If not, I'm going to stop sharing, and then I'm going to let either Nikki or Sarah talk a little bit about what we're doing with the business profiles that we spoke of in our last meeting.
All right, so this is Nikki, and I'm going to go right back to that website if I can find it. Actually, let me see, where's it at?
Do you want me to go back there for you, Nikki?
Yeah, go ahead and go back there for me, Scott, and I'll just have you click on a couple. There's a couple spots that we didn't see yet that I wanted to show off. So in the email that we sent to you all about this meeting, we've been talking about a survey, and Dave Brown and Kara Jensen have both filled out that survey, and then I got back with them and did interviews with them. And we have, the idea for that is we were going to create profiles about each one of the businesses that are grouped. So if we hit the Who We Are tab and our members, everybody who signs up is in our list of our members. And then as we scroll down that page, every time we do a profile, that will show up at the bottom of this page. Now we're hoping to move everybody from that top list down to our bottom list so that it looks a lot prettier. It really makes a lot more of an impact. So just today we got Dave Brown's profile ready. So we'll go ahead and click on that, Scott, and we'll show off how that looks. And pretty much what we did was we took from the interview that when I was able to meet with Dave and Lisa and get to know them, and wrote up a short little bit about the business and about their connection to public lands. And I think Kara's is next, so we're going to see hers coming out this week. And of course, Dave had the opportunity to look this over and make sure that we were using the correct words in the right spot for him, and it all makes sense. So from here, what we do is we put that on our social media, so he gets a little bit of promotion on our social media, but it also really connects people to our public lands and our issues that we're doing as well. So we're really happy with these profiles, and we'll be seeing more of them come out over the next week. Ash, we're going to set up a time to meet. I'll be writing you back very soon. And Ben and Kent are the two on the list that I haven't seen your. I'd love to see you fill out that quick and easy survey for us, and then from there I'll set up a time to get to know you guys a little bit better, and we'll go from our profiles from there. So this is a nice opportunity to a little bit of free advertising, but also connects you to, connects people to our issues and connects you to our issues.
So I think the other thing we want to highlight is, in social media, the adage is the more love you give, the more love you get. So, click when we have something like this kind of a profile, and at the bottom of each of these will allow people to, click and connect with, in this case, Dave Brown Outfitters. So thanks, Dave, for being our first guinea pig on this profile and our first guinea pig for the McSally call this past week.
Oh, you're more than welcome. Yeah.
So excellent stuff. That's what we've got kind of going on right now. And so the next email I'll be sending out within a few days is a link to this video of the meeting that we've just had, another link to our survey. And we're pulling people in all the time. We've talked to another couple businesses this week who are interested in joining us. We have some other opportunities, of course, that we're looking at with connecting with some of our representatives. So the time I get to speak with you on a kind of an interview and get to know you, I get to know where you're at and what your issues are. And then whenever we have one of those issues come up for our campaigns, kind of get back to you and go, aha, you know, this person's a great person. They really know this issue and they really know this place. And that's exactly what our representatives want to, that's exactly the demographic that our representatives want to hear from as well. So it really, really goes a long way when you guys are involved, for sure. So that's what we've got going up on our website right now. Our social media is getting very, very active. We're just about to do some paid ads to bring in some more followers so that we have even more of an impact. So you'll see some more of that coming around. Hopefully you've joined us on social media. If you do have an active website, Facebook or Instagram, feel free to like amplify that so that, you know, you're showing people, hey, I got on this thing, you know, follow us for some more information. And we know you're there. We like Scott said, you know, getting and giving that love so that we can amplify each other's voices for sure. And yeah, having a great impact. We now have some stickers and business cards. We're really hoping that as things open up here, we can start getting the word out a little bit more. And oh, go ahead, Dave.
Sorry, I'm a big swag fan, and I was
yeah.
gonna ask about stickers and potentially ball caps. And are
yes.
we allowed to use the logo? Like that's a really sharp logo. Are we allowed to?
Isn't that nice? Yeah, yeah. You are welcome to. I don't have like an agreement at this point or something written out saying, hey, you can use our logo on our website, but I am happy to send you a better version, you know, so you don't have to just take it off the web. You can put it on your website and say, hey, I'm a member of this coalition. I can definitely send out some stickers to us, and been looking into hats. So it's good to have your pat on the back on that. So that gives me inspiration to get it done a little bit faster.
Yeah, awesome.
If you have anybody that you work with for good swag, let me know and I will surely look them up, especially if they're an Arizona business. We always want to give them some love for sure.
Okay.
But yeah, we're working on that swag for sure. It'll be fun to have that on a hat. So, awesome.
Yeah, no, it's sharp looking.
It is. All right, so Scott, that's all I have to bring up. Are there any other questions from you guys about our next steps? Well, I guess the next part we put in is, of course, we're going to have a meeting in June. Been trying a couple different times, and I'd love your feedback on this. You know, we're not in a new normal, we're in a new abnormal. So I know everybody's situation is a little bit different. And then, of course, being that we're all outdoor recreation industry related, some of us have a pretty busy week. Some of us have a very busy weekend. Some of us have busier evenings than we do days. So I'm still trying to find that sweet spot of what's a good time for us to meet. Happy to take your informal vote. You just give me an email back saying what's good for you. But I kind of suspect that over the next at least month, it's going to be kind of up in the air for a lot of people as we kind of settle into seeing what stays open and how the economy gets going again. So. But like I said, I always record these meetings so that people can jump in even after the fact, get to know us and contribute to the conversation. So any other questions or comments or thoughts before we go?
Well, only one other question, Nikki. Between you and Sarah, do you know when we'll have an action button ready for the Grand Canyon and for LWCF for the funding bill? Will that be by like end of the week?
We are definitely working on them this week.
Okay. And
yeah,
so
we'll see how our
note when they're live.
For sure. Okay. Yes.
Thank you. Great. I think if there's no other questions, then that's it. Thanks, Nikki. Thanks everybody for
Thank you everyone for being here. This is a great conversation. It's good to see you all again.
Thanks, Stuart. Yeah, thanks, Stuart. Take care. Don't freeze up there in Colorado.
Thanks for having me.
All right, thanks, guys.
All right, see ya.
Thank you.